Tony Sklar with bnetTV. We are here at the CCA conference in Las Vegas for 2013. I'm having the pleasure of speaking with the president and CEO of the CCA, the Competitive Carriers Association, Mr. Steve Berry. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing fine, Tony. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too, my friend, and it's always a pleasure to have a good conversation with you.
Thank you very much. I'm really pleased that you came to join us again, and I hope you learned a little about the competitive carriers while you're here.
So, yeah, thank you very much for that. And every time I come to one of your conferences, not only do I see a tremendous growth within the ecosystem as a whole, but I see a lot of companies, whether they are first-time people, members, or they've got some longevity within the industry, they seem to be extremely excited. And they also seem to be very appreciative of the people who are attending these this particular conference, because business is getting done.
Absolutely right, and you know, this was a great first day. You know, with Chairwoman Clyburn coming and getting to tell us about the huge interoperability win on 700 megahertz. That really puts some air in the stride of all these carriers. They can now build out over $2 billion of spectrum they had in their pocket that they couldn't build out because they couldn't get devices. I think we're going to see, you know, new services, more services, rural, regional consumers, and you can't help but have sort of a spring in your step when you know that you have some solutions now. You have a pathway to 4G, and of course the vendors and suppliers, they want to sell the product to the carriers, and the carriers are, I think they're ready to move forward.
Break down a little bit from an analytical standpoint what the difference is between the interop that has just happened in the 700 megahertz arena and the new spectrum auction that inevitably is going to be ensuing.
Yes, the 700 megahertz auction was auction 73. It's been out there for over 5 years, and we originally thought it was going to be interoperable, the lower and upper bands interoperable. But what happened was AT&T and Verizon carved out their boutique type band plans and segregated band 17 away from band 12. So our carriers, the smaller carriers that had bought band 12, did not have an ecosystem that they could operate. The specifications for the handsets and the devices that AT&T adopted was essentially eliminated the smaller carrier opportunities to get in the market. So that was a real concern, and that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to put Humpty Dumpty back together again and get interoperability in the lower 700 megahertz band. Now, 600 megahertz is the incentive auction, and I think everyone, including especially the FCC, have said they've learned their lesson, that they need interoperability from the get-go on 600 megahertz, and that's music to our ears, because then that means, as Neville Ray said today, that any device that operates on 600 megahertz will operate on any 600 megahertz slice of any carrier in that whole band. That means you have interoperability. That means you have cost-effective handsets, deployment scenarios. You have potential roaming partners. You have people that you can share customers with if you want to, and improve customer quality of service. So I think it's a good thing that we won the battle on the lower 700 megahertz. I think everyone learned a little lesson, and I hope that ultimately the taxpayer is going to benefit from this, because the 600 megahertz auction with interoperability is going to be some high prices for the U.S. Treasury.
Tell me a little bit about what the last 6 months has looked like for the Tier 2 and Tier 3 carriers on a competitive basis, and how they've had the advantages that you've just sort of talked about within the spectrum arena, but that is related back to ARPU.
Well, you know, the last 6 months have been really tough on the Tier 2 carriers. We've seen consolidation take a toll, and while some of the carriers that were bought up had done quite well in the marketplace, they had done that under, you know, real severe circumstances. It's been a real difficult time frame for the competitive carriers, not knowing what their 4G pathway was, not having the devices that they could put on their network. You know, we just heard today from Current Analysis that did an analytical study for us, and we learned that, you know, even in rural America where you may have lower income households, they're going to buy that wireless device and they're going to do away with their wireline product. And what we're seeing is with the pathway to 4G and with the consumer preference looking at mobile or mobility as their preference connection, then I think we see a new opportunity for the small carriers that are out there that have weathered the storm of trying to find a 4G solution. And now we have Sprint and T-Mobile being much more collectively thinking and solicitous of the small carriers' capabilities. And I'm hoping that it's going to be an improvement not only for the consumer, but I hope small carriers will have a pathway to a healthy economy.
Some of the conversations that we've had on the floor and at our studio with not only the carriers but the infrastructure providers as well, it seems that there's a lot more white label solutions for the Tier 2 and Tier 3 and the MVNO arena to be able to not just for billing but for a VoLTE when it inevitably gets there and other LTE type rollouts, including small cells. It looks like the CapEx has come down on that a little bit. So does that mean that the rollouts are inevitably going to be faster, and does that allow these Tier 2 and 3 and MVNO marketplaces to have a little bit more diversity gaining critical mass?
I think all those are potential positive signs, but the fact of the matter is these carriers have to get to a 4G product. Why? Because the 4G network is more efficient than the 2 or 3G network. And if you want to bring your prices down and improve your customer service and your throughput and your capacity, you've got to get to 4G. And as the larger carriers go to 4G, you're going to look at handsets in another 12 months or so, and they're going to be 4G LTE only. So the legacy capabilities of 2 and 3G networks are going to be substantially diminished, and they cost more to sustain. I don't know if you saw the Alcatel-Lucent presentation today. I think Mike Scheibel came in and showed us exactly the economics of what our carriers are going to be faced. You have a 2 and a 3G network that is more expensive to maintain, but you have to get to 4G, and you have to put out capital expenditures to get there in order to get savings in the long run. So this is a real time of change for every carrier. There's a great possibility and a great promise for these small carriers as we get to that 4G.
I can appreciate where you're coming from, that what you're describing to me, and I'm hoping to maybe some of our viewers, inevitably is the all-American idealistic principle of let's build it and they will come. We will drive economics with technology, and it doesn't matter if we are maybe still trying to get out of a recession. Maybe we are, maybe we aren't, maybe we're in a flux, maybe that, we're unsure of that. But let's go out and let's spend the money right now because that's the right thing to do.
Well, you also have demand. Customer demand, the consumer demand for data is going through the roof. So it's the right thing to do. It's the only thing you can do if you're going to stay in business. So I think it's the right thing to do for the consumer, but you really don't have much choice. I said this today in my speech. I said, Hugh Mina, the CEO of C-Spire, told me one time, said, Steve, never get behind on your G's. And the Alcatel-Lucent presentation today made it perfectly clear that you can't sustain economic deployment and economic utilization of your existing network without having a 4G pathway. And we're going to have to think about, and the small carriers are going to have to think about, how do you retire and migrate from a 2 and 3G network to a 4G network. So you don't have many other choices. You gotta have a lot of optimism about this, because that's where you have to go if you're going to stay efficient, effective, and actually make money. Because remember, when the large guys go to 4G, then their cost of operating their network, you're absolutely correct, CapEx is going to come down, efficiencies will go up, and they're going to be able to lower the prices. And guess what? If you're on a 2 or 3G network, you're not going to be able to charge anymore.
That's right.
So you better get there. Yeah.
You and your staff have done a fantastic job in building such a wonderful organization. I know you get a chance to walk the floor quite a bit here and there when it's open, when you're not in a meeting or whatnot. Tell me something that you've seen out here on the floor that's been exciting that you enjoyed.
I got to tell you, I'm really excited every time we go by the floor. There's something new, there's something unique that that you didn't know somebody was doing, and right now I can't think of one that sort of stands out, but some of the vendors and suppliers like Walker Communications over there, that they are all about providing services and hardware and equipment to the carrier, and they sort of epitomize the goal of our association, which is that's not, we don't focus so much on the retail consumer side. We're trying to focus on what carriers need and how can they improve their network and actually operate a network on efficient cost efficient basis. And I think guys, companies like Walker and some of the other companies that are providing handset devices that many of our carriers you previously could not get are doing their part in terms of trying to get our carriers' networks up to speed so they can handle that smartphone iconic device. Hopefully, maybe it's an Apple, maybe it's an Android, but that's where they have to. That's where they have to be, and it's the vendors and suppliers that are around here that are focused on solutions for the small carrier. OSG billing, for example. Many of our carriers, the billing solutions are getting more innovative. Cycle 30 is a billing solution. Some of the M2M solutions that we're seeing there are really quite engaging. There's one vendor over there that has a security system in a box. You open the box up, you can deploy a security system in your household literally in minutes with video and capability to connect to your broadband connection wirelessly. I think those are the types of things you love to see coming down the pike. So I think the carriers need this innovative thought, and it's so good to see vendors out there that are not necessarily focused on the largest of the large carriers, but they want to find solutions for the smaller carrier, the smaller tier 1, tier 2, 3 carriers.
So my final question to you, Steve, is here. I want you to give me a really good summary and a wrap up and a little bit of a promotional pitch. Okay. Why is it important to be a member of the CCA? Why does membership have its benefits?
I think the CCA is on the cutting edge of every policy issue that means bottom line impact to our members. If you want to know what is going on in the incentive auction, if you want to know what the eligibility requirements are, you want to know what to expect, you want to know which spectrum auctions are coming available and how you can make sure that you're competitive with that, you need information. And we're all about giving our carriers, our members, all the information that they need to make good decisions. We're also the advocacy arm for this association. I mean, we can win the data roaming mandate, which we did, and but the battle's not over. We still have to make sure these carriers can connect. We can win the interoperability order, which we did. We still have to make sure that there is interoperability not only in 700 but 600. So these are critical issues that are going to really make the difference on whether these carriers can continue to survive. Handsets and devices, huge issue for us. Unlocking, as you know, has been
up and down.
But one of our main issues, so that our carriers can get access not only to these devices, but the consumer can come and join them because they have maybe better personalized service, maybe they have better coverage in a rural area. So we, with the industry development program, we're helping bring carriers together, finding solutions and sharing that. That networking, that's something you can't buy. Another carrier sitting there telling you, here's what I did to find a solution and solve this problem in my network, and they have the same network. They're sitting there saying, I just learned something. That's one of the reasons that it's so neat to have a networking event like this, that people know each other, they can sit down and talk and get smart on some of these issues. So that's one of the reasons. I think the other reason is it is an educational forum that many of the vendors and suppliers come to, and we think that they are getting business done here. We think there's deals being cut every day that's going to help these carriers get out there in the marketplace and compete. And it's just a lot of good people too. They're salt of the earth operators here, and they're community oriented, and they care about the customers, they care about the community, and they care about their other friends and colleagues in the industry. It's a good place to come and enjoy friendships.
From this media outlet's perspective and our ear to the ground, I can echo the exact same sentiments. I very much appreciate where you and the organization is coming from. All we've heard is exactly what you have just said.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you. It's good to get independent reading of that, and I know how true you are to the truth and veracity of everything we do, and we really appreciate you coming here and being part of our event.
Thanks so much, Steve. Always a pleasure to speak with you. I can't wait for our next conversation.
Sounds great. Thank you.
I have the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Steve Berry from the Competitive Carriers Association here at the CCA conference in Las Vegas for 2013. I am Tony Sklar with bnetTV.